is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Every time I hear that intro, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. I have a very special guest today. I have had to reflect recently on how I got here. And I don't have enough time in this show, but part of how I got here was learning from people like Jane Phillips, my very special guest today. When I think about Jane, and today we're going to talk about the healing eye, Jane Phillips, she's going to share most incredible, fascinating stories. And I got to tell you, I've gotten to speak with Jane a number of times, but the bottom line is every time I have a conversation with her, I'm in awe about her journey, her life, her courage. You know, when you are in this world as a certified medical intuitive, quantum energy practitioner, emotional coach, what I want to say about this is when you're somebody like Jane, who started this journey before anybody even heard the word energy medicine or energy healing or anything like that, you know that you have got some stories under your belt. Today, I want to introduce you to the most incredible person that has been out in the world helping all of us heal. And if you listen to Jane's show, you'll also find out the extraordinary world that Jane lives in, has created, and invites all of us to. Jane, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Pat. I really appreciate it. And yes, it's been a journey because one of the things that happened with me is I did not know I was going to be doing what I've been doing for the last 15 or 20 years. And I started out as a medical, not even medical. I was a working in the real estate business, doing mortgages and financing and all of that. Probably up for a very long time. I kept trying to get out of it, but I kept getting pulled back in and finally left that career in 2005 with no plans of what I was going to do next. And so here I am in 20 years later, having taken psychic development classes, becoming a coach, business coach and life coach, and taking classes. So I thought I could be more intuitive for my clients, and then finding out that I actually really had a psychic gift that I just assumed was an active imagination my whole life. So
I love this conversation because let's talk about this. I mentioned a few things. You see, had I not gotten sick in 2004, I wouldn't be here because I was really willing to walk away. And a lot of pressure to do that corporate consulting job, but my gut said, don't do it. But yet I had doubts. So the universe kind of gave me a mystery disease, which said, basically, Pat, you can't do any other job except keep buying airtime. So I want to talk to you about being a certified medical intuitive, because I first heard that term, psychic medium, of course, but emotional code practitioner. I want to talk about these three things because for so long, we have neglected to even have an idea of how our emotions, how our intuition affects everything. What do you think about that, Jane?
Well, it's true. Because especially in the United States, in the Western medicine world, anything that's off with us, if it's an emotional issue, you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. If you have a physical issue, you go to an osteopath or somebody that's going to tell you what's going on. And that's not the only source of healing. And because in our culture, the alternate sources are really suspect and they're not, in quotes, science. But what happens in the healing world, whether it's me or somebody else, we're talking about stress, puts cortisol in our system, changes our chemistry. We change our chemistry, our body reacts, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all of that. And so I've been playing in the maybe make it up world for a lot longer than I've been doing this work in the last 20 years. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like experimenting in the mortgage business and saying, oh, we've got a problem client. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's put a sticky note up. Or people who weren't making their goals in the mortgage world, I'd look at them and I'd say, oh, all you have to do is put a sticky note up and it'll be, you'll meet your goal. And they'd look at me, or one person, my best story is one person said, I have to have one more loan application. This is the end of the month. If I don't, they're going to cut my commissions. And you're already making less money because you're doing less loans. And she said, I just need a $70,000 FHA mortgage. And I said, oh, well, just write that down and stick it up there. And I walked away with all this Jane confidence that comes from nowhere that I don't. And she ran to me about 2 hours later and she said, they're coming in today. It's a $75,000 FHA loan. And I said, yep.
Yeah.
But
You know, this is so important in the world we live in today. We had a similar thing this week. So I started to reflect on what this idea is, asking for what you want. And I started to do exactly what you're doing. I used to be the queen of Post-it notes, by the way. And
yep.
and I stopped. And this week what I did is I set some very clear goals for us. And we met them on one day. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. We can't stop doing that. So this morning I went up and said, here's where we are. Here's the new goal. Here's what you want to do or more. OMG. Did
Yep.
people look at you like you had a magic wand or something? Because it really does work, Jane.
No, I don't know what part of me knew this, but
Yeah.
I did it with friends. I did
Mm.
it with a friend of mine in town in Santa Fe that races cars, and he needed $50,000 to support the funding of his racing. And he said, it's just not coming in. And I said, oh, it's the sticky note thing. You just write the 50,000 and then it's done.
Mhm.
And then I never know if it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
So just yesterday, I called to wish him happy birthday. And he said, you know, that thing worked right away. And I said, he says, but now I need another 50. I said, well, did you do another sticky note? I said, do it for 75,000. You're racing a car. And he says, oh, okay, I'll send you a picture when I've got the Post-it note up, and I'm going to bug him because,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, it's so funny. I was preparing for this show and cleaning the garage at the same time this weekend.
yeah, right.
But looked at the show. I knew what we were going to do. And I came across my old vision board, which I got a canvas, painted it gold, put a light around it, and it's in my garage with nothing on it. And I thought that cannot happen. And so I made myself a note to really bring it in. And if nothing else, push pin your sticky notes on it. Why? But you know, it's important for us to understand that there's areas that come from, but boy, did you say something which I don't know what to do. And this is related to the healing eye, which I want to talk about. I I don't know what to say, but I catch myself reacting, reacting to something, like over the top reacting. For example, how many emails you get a day? You get an email and somebody's asking questions and already you interpret what's happening with them, right? And you react to it instead of staying at peace. We have to protect our peace. Let's talk about this related to the healing eye because there's so many things that we could be in pain for, that somebody is struggling. I mean, gosh, somebody asked me, why am I not in more pain based on my childhood and things that have happened to me? And I said, dude, that like happened to me. That's like not me. It's not happening to me now. But let's talk about what you mean when you say, or can you see the sense of the real story behind someone's pain? Because there is a real story.
Um, So it is pretty intuitive at this point. And there is, as a side thing that I want to comment is there are some clients that we all hoard to some degree, but some clients hoard their stories from the past and all the tough stuff. And so they never clear it out. And so if I run into somebody when I on a session and they're talking and all is the past, I'm listening really hard to all the stuff they believe is true. And it doesn't, I don't think you have to be really intuitive to see that there's a pattern, right? And it's usually not the first word, but sometimes it'll be one sentence and I'll go, well, bingo, that's the sentence that's running your whole show. And so therefore you can't get rid of the past. There's a movie I saw that had the quote in there, what if the past is not yet history? And so
Wow.
for you, Pat, and also for me, I've got a whole bunch of things I could tell you that were not great in my life,
Yeah.
right? And however, for some reason, I don't tend to repeat things. So
Yeah.
some part of me is able to take the lesson from it, or some higher part of me reframes it as you have, so that we're not carrying it forward to create more of that in the future. And it's so my gift is for people who are ready for what I do, then to really see what the deep thought process is and help eliminate it
Yeah.
with a variety of ways.
Well, we're going to hear some stories. For those of you just tuning in, my very special guest today, and you're going to be able to actually take a listen and watch Jane's show. It's Jane Phillips. And please go to the website, Jane C, as in Charlie, Phillips.com. Did I get that right, Jane?
Yeah.
Jane C. Okay. Because you're going to see a lot of things. You can also go to intuitivemedicalhealer.com. And, by the way, for you folks to even get that domain name, it just shows you how quickly Jane did that. That domain name, you can't even touch that now. So I want to talk about stories. Why? Okay, so Linda said to me this morning, you're making up a story. Okay, so Linda has been attracting animals to the sliding door next to where she sits. I mean, strange behavior. The rabbit jumping up. This morning, this cat, this beautiful cat, shows up at the sliding door. She's yelling for me. It's so beautiful. It's meow, meow, right? And so she calls me, and I cannot. And when I hear an animal like that that sounds in pain, I said, "Oh my God, Linda, I got to give it water. We got to give it a little tuna fish because I think it's going to have babies. Look at its belly." And she said, "You're always making up a story. Where do you think they're going to have babies?" I said, I just know this cat is crying, looking for a place to have its babies. Now, I don't know if the cat's going to have its babies, but I felt it so clearly. So that's a teeny story. I don't know if I'll ever know if that cat has babies, but the emotional side of me felt like I needed to care for it, that even for 5 minutes. From you, you have probably seen everything from changing a life path. I want to hear from you. You've worked with clients all over the world. Tell us a couple of stories about what you've done, what you've seen, and rock our world today,
Well,
Jane.
okay, I wrote a couple things down because I can talk for hours on end, as anyone who lives near me who comes and says, so what do you do? And then we're done. And then I don't leave a word in. But I wanted to talk about some more recent things. And I've done lots of things that astound me. But what has happened recently is I'm aware from training, but also from personal practicing, is that sometimes you can change the past so it never happened. And people go, well, what? So my first story is a client probably from a month and a half ago, not very long ago, and I'm doing free or basically donate Thursdays because I want to give back to people who maybe can't afford my pricing. And she came to me with neck pain and back pain. And the back pain was from getting sideswiped on the passenger side coming out of the Trader Joe's parking lot
Wow.
in Santa Fe. And she didn't really go and get any help. And then that was in December of 2022. So it's been a long time with a lot of back pain. And then skiing in January, I asked if she was a black diamond. She says, no, she's the green bunny trail kind of one. She got hit from behind on her second run down by a snowboarder.
Wow.
And so fast forward, I cleared some emotional issues from both of those using my emotion code, just some trapped emotions that might be there. And then with her permission, we went back and redrove her way home in both situations. And so with the one that she got hit outside of Trader Joe's, she left the parking lot in a different direction and avoided that area that she'd gotten hit. We drove all the way home in her mind, 20 minutes. Then we went back. And after I did that, we did the ski slope. And I said, can you go, which way did you go down? She said, I went to the left. I said, is it possible where you were starting that you can go to the right? So the first time she'd skied twice and got hit. Second time she had 4 times down the run. And then we drove all the way home in her mind. And I forgot to tell her it was going to take 13 days to recover. So the next day she was really complaining about her neck. And so I did a little more work, and a couple of days later, I just had some stuff that was stuck. 13 days later, she is totally pain-free.
Wow.
Because basically her body doesn't think she ever had those accidents.
Wow.
And so for those of you listening, this is not an easy thing to do by yourself. You might be able to, but if you have a traumatic event that's really embedded, sometimes you need someone like me to remove emotions, and there are other people that do this. And sometimes you need that extra walk it through and not have it happen, because the energies that we're working with are in the etheric and other realms of us. It takes a while to get into the physical. So if you can basically tell your body that that nothing happened, then you have the ability, your physical body can heal.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's so, for me, I love the way you talk about it, Jane, because there's a confidence and a knowing that you have. And, I've had to experience with multiple people in a 22-year period, but your level of confidence is what people need in order to be able to work with someone. You're compassionate, but you're confident, you're knowing. And that is something that you can't get by yourself. So let's talk about something you mentioned before. I want to talk about emotional and energetic roots for a minute. And and how to clear things, because these are all tied together. But often we don't do it. You ever ask somebody, how do you feel? And they start out by, well, I think. Okay, right? How do you feel? Well, I think. Okay, that's a think. That's not a, well, how do you feel? And we are now, I just read a Gallup poll. We are so stuffing things right now. And the cost of stuffing emotions, maybe you should tell us what the cost of that is, Jane.
Well, thank you for throwing the ball back.
Yeah, I had to.
But stuffing any emotions is puts stress on your physical body and creates chemistry. Any emotion is a chemical reaction, right? And so if you have anxiety, so it puts stress on your body, it causes backaches, it causes headaches, it causes shoulder pain, all of that. But unstuffing or relaying emotions, if you've never done that, you don't even know what they are. A lot of it, we need friends who will support us and tell us that it's okay to be crying or okay to be angry, and just let somebody explore what their emotions really are, and not tell them what they need to do about it. That's it. That's my biggest thing. If someone tells you what you need to do, walk away, because they don't know you. They don't know your life history. They don't know your past. They don't know all the things that are going on. They have their own version. And so stuffing emotions is dangerous.
And we could spend time really talking about why I had an emotional reaction to that beautiful cat that's outside. We could talk about that, but that would take probably 5 hours if you and I ever began that. But
Yep.
here's the important thing I do want people to know about today. And it's really probably, I think, one of the most important parts of what you do, clearing it all, whether it's paranormal energy, space clearing, emotional clearing, clearing. And I want to talk about that. And you understand I'm being vague on purpose because this is not an area of expertise for me, but I have understood the life-changing benefit from clearing. Let's talk about what you've seen, life-changing things when people can quote clear things. And maybe you should tell people what I mean by clearing. I don't mean go get your Swifter and clean your floor, right?
So I'll have to keep it sort of basic, but I energy clear paranormal, but things all over the world on houses and people. But what happens is, and I've pretty much got a 5-star review everywhere because I'm so thorough. I'm not just waving a magic wand, but if somebody, when I'm clearing, especially if I'm clearing a person, which is part of, if I'm clearing a house, I'm clearing the people. But even if I'm just clearing a person, the common thing is they feel lighter. And clearing generally is possessions. It's not the exorcism like in the movies. It's energies that like you better than where they were. And they're an energetic match. And the story I say is if you're depressed, someone who died who hasn't crossed to heaven or wherever that place is also was depressed when they died, they're going to look and say, oh, this person gets me. I'm going to hang on that person. And then you have one person and then somebody says, oh, are we forming a community? Now everybody, all my clients the same way are laughing. I said, so instead of being like these energies are out to harm you, they're just a general match to you. And so what happens is when I have a protocol that sends all of these energies in a kind, loving way home, my clients are lighter. If they've got a spouse, men sometimes are have a tougher time with energies than women, but not always.
Yeah.
But what happens is people are getting along with their friends and their family better. All of that is a result of that. Their houses, when I'm doing a full house, they will tell me their house feels lighter. They can now go down the basement, which was creepy, or their husband's office, which the kids wouldn't even go into. Now they sit and play on the floor. So it's huge. And
It is.
that's why I do it, because
Yeah.
of the difference I can make one person or a family at a time.
Yeah. And I want to talk a minute about how huge it is because it's huge in the fact that it sets people on a new place for freedom and transformation. And we really do need to touch upon that because whether or not you believe it, you're stuck. Hello. Something in your life you're not moving forward with. But on the surface, you may look like you got the great job, but there's something in there that is holding you from your fullest potential. So let's talk about the kind of transformation you see often and the path of freedom that people feel now.
What? Yeah. The biggest thing is I've worked with businesses, and there was a gal who was having a trouble. All of a sudden, none of her contracts were going through, right? So I cleared her and her business, but she's the sole proprietor, so it wasn't like I had a lot of staff. But what happened for her is, first of all, her confidence level went up because she didn't have all these other energies on her bringing her down. And her confidence level went up, and she wasn't even doing sticky notes. She had tons of proposals out there, and she was getting responses now. And so when you don't have, there's so many energies, you have extra energies on you, they're talking to you. But you're depressed and they're talking to you and they're saying, yeah, life's really hard. And you go, yeah, it is. And someone else says, oh, let me tell you my bad story. And these are playing in your head and you think it's you and it's not. And these energies are gone. Now you have, this is Freedom Month, freedom. And so I want people to have better discernment. It gives you better discernment because you don't have all these other opinions going on. And it's just, you're so much freer.
Yeah.
And think better and more optimistic. And part of the reason maybe my confidence is there is because I have been totally not confident for a lot of this journey, and
Yeah.
I've just done it anyway because of somehow I'm wired. My goal is to help you when you're not confident, have enough stuff off of you so you can find your path.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. Look, we could go on here. I want to thank you for today. I want to ask you, first of all, what is the personal message? What do you want to leave us with? And how do people work with you and find out more about you? Let's make sure we give folks information if we could.
Yep. So, I guess the personal message, especially in these times now with the political climate that makes everybody nuts, is all is not lost. And that I want people to know that if they get cleared or whatever, that there's hope going forward. And I might be part of that journey. As Pat said before, janecphillips.com will get you to actually 2 websites, my medical intuitive one and my ghost busting one. And we'll give you a way to maybe do a 20-minute consultation with me to see if we'd be a match, to do a one-on-one. I'm going to be teaching some classes so that we can do healing on a more global basis. But I just want people to know that, especially with this climate, I tell people, if there's something that you personally feel you want to do about anything, I don't care, this political climate or something else, and you have a way that you want to contribute, then do that. But if all the things that you're looking at are just making you feel helpless, turn off the TV, stop your phone. I'm now on basically no interruptions throughout the day and check frequently for texts from people, but I'm not being hit all the time. So my personal message is figure out what makes your heart sing, right? Do that. And the things that make you scared, if there's nothing you can do about it, turn your eyes away. Turn your eyes to the things that you can help. You can help your family and your friends and be a supportive friend. And I really appreciate Pat today, and that, Pat and I could talk on forever.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Also, I'm really struck by the sign behind you, release your potential. And that is something that you talk about, but it's so important. And in order to release your potential, all the things you touched upon today are those things that could help people literally live that life where that is how you're living it. Thank you, Jane, so much for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pat.
You bet. I want to thank all of you for tuning us in and turning us on. And what Jane talked about today, I really want you to hold on to, especially the part of hope. Like many of us, as the owner of a media company, I turned off those pop-ups. And boy, I'm telling you, my day is so much better about them. Thank you all for tuning us in. Thank you, Jane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.